and welcome to the Priggya Arora Show, where we discuss law, entrepreneurship, and innovation with people who have been there and done that. My name is Priggya Arora, founder of PA Legal, an intellectual property law firm in India. And our guest for today is Mr. Magnus Hakvåg. He is the CEO of House of Knowledge. And today we'll discuss a very interesting topic, which is about new ways of learning intellectual property. Welcome, Magnus, on the show.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for inviting.
So, Magnus, we'll start with your life story and how did you become the person you are today so that the audience will get to know you, and then we'll dive into the topic.
Well, that's interesting. I've actually started out doing something completely different than I'm doing today. I started out studying physics. And we learned we like the potato, so I figured out let's do something completely different. And I went in the realm of intellectual property, and I've been doing that for, I'd say, 22 years.
Wow.
And all the time I've been actually focused on education, because that's fun.
Mm-hmm. Wow, Magnus. So 22 years in the industry, and I think the field of intellectual property belongs to innovation and invention. So why not start with what is innovation and what is invention? So let's start discussing those topics. And
Yeah, excellent. So I actually have some deep insights in this because through ISO, I've been leading a work on harmonizing the global terminology of innovation.
yeah,
Which means, what does innovation mean? What does invention mean? And how does this relate to any related topics? And through all of this, we had some challenge, I would say, with 65 countries not agreeing on what is innovation and what is invention and all the other words. So we figured out, okay, let's start out with figuring out what is innovation. Innovation is something new, which is being used and adopted by the market. And then by this, well, generate value to those creating it. That's the easy version. Now, an invention is actually just something new. So you might also say that, well, which solves potentially a problem, but you might also say that a innovation is a commercialized invention.
correct.
But it's one more essential part. There's a distinction between invention and patentable invention.
Yeah.
Invention is a normal word we could use without the legal realm. Patentable invention, that is a legal construction, which is, well, then the invention also fulfills requirements to get a patent, which is, well, yeah, that's something else.
Yeah. So Magnus very rightly said, and in one of the courses that I also studied, invention, the difference between invention and innovation was, I think that is the easiest definition that I could remember. It is the innovation is the product of invention and commercialization. So innovation equals to invention into commercialization. Like we just said, that there has to be some value associated with the invention, and then it will lead to innovation.
Yeah, totally. That's spot on.
So, now entering into the kind of work you do with serious games. So can you tell us more about how it works with the training industry, and how do you have new ways of teaching intellectual property?
Well, what we experience that intellectual property and innovation is quite advanced and complex subject matters, and there's a lot of unknown words. The other part is that you need to understand how this is applied in reality. Okay. And while going to normal lessons, well, that might be not so fun. You might kind of get overwhelmed by a lot of difficult words, and you kind of, well, you lose out. So what we focus on instead is how can we engage people in dialogue, exchanging perspectives, because what we figured out is that people know a lot more about IP and innovation than they think, because you meet it every day in whatever you do. So what we've done is that we created simulations, or what we call serious games, which is a way of simulating reality in a controlled environment where you as a group have IP-related discussions, where we're in control And then, well, you learn from each other and you learn to apply it and you learn how to make IP strategies, but not IP strategies, which is kind of standalone, but how you make IP strategies part of the business strategy, because that's where the money is. IP
Yeah.
strategy without a link to business strategy, that's a really bad idea.
So in terms of implementation, Magnus, like when we have when you say you develop serious games. So how is the incorporation happening? I think people would be really interested to know how they can implement such thing in their probably business organizations or various sectors. Like would it be specifically to train people, or they can even manage IP with these kind of things?
Well, you can actually do both, and that's interesting. We're actually right now developing a serious game for a US-based client where we use a serious game or this kind of simulation to assist the company aligning the understanding of what is intellectual assets or know-how and trade secrets. And we use the game as a way of assisting the firm mapping out all their know-how, which is essential. Those know-hows which, well, gives them benefits in the markets. Well, you could use serious games to implement structures in organization because you use it to engage people in much more fun dialogues where you exchange perspectives and well, it's an easier way of linking it to their context. Because if I want to do something in one country, I might do it differently in another country. And
Correct.
using a simulation like this, it's easier to engage people and then learn from them because that's essential. I need to learn from, and you need to learn from your colleagues, and then it's way easier. And then the game is quite interesting.
Yeah. So, Magnus, like you just said, that law of one country would be different from law of other countries. So, uh, do we have to prepare these games for everybody? Like, is it specific to an organization, or we can have one, like basics of IP is same for everybody? So, one game where people can just go and access and learn from these kinds of game.
Well, organizations can make their own games, and it just takes some resources to understand the learning psychology of adults, which is difficult.
Yeah.
We create a lot of those games, and we make generic games, which is, it doesn't matter where you are, in which culture, your background, it's just that we are capable of communicating in a joint language. So let's say we are using English. Well, you need to know English, and we need to be able in the same room or digitally, and we need to be able to communicate. And we're set. That's the only requirements. So we can use generic games of how do you relate IP strategies or strategize around IP and business strategy. So that's generic, but we can make games which is country specific, or we can make games which are, or you can make yourself games which are company specific. We actually created a serious game on the Global Innovation Index made by WIPO. And then we use it on how to train governmental officials and the entire IP industry in Norway, for example. And then we linked it to the report of Norway. So this game only applies for Norway. And then you need to amend it a bit to other countries. But then we have dialogues on how can we improve the innovation performance of a country, which is really good. And it's a really interesting way you can engage business stakeholders and governmental stakeholders, and then you exchange perspectives. Right now, we are figuring out that in those games, or the game I just mentioned, it's also possible to make generic. So you could use this kind of global innovation index game, and you could use it for whatever country on the planet. You just use the index report from that specific country, and it's game on. But you need a facilitator, meaning somebody who can engage, and then somebody, and since I'm a man, it's easy to say it, stop us men from mansplaining, because that's a nightmare sometimes. And we need people who are more quiet to get engaged, and we need to establish psychological security, meaning people need to feel comfortable exchanging their perspectives with their colleagues, and then it's game on.
Yeah, I know like the things, technologies like immersive technology, metaverse, and things have been in place right now, and people are adapting to newer ways of technology. So in similar manner, if we have a kind of immersive technology where we can learn about IP or anything, any law, or anything for that matter, I think it would be so good that okay, we are entering into this immersive place where I can interact with people and learn from them, and it is a newer and a fun way of learning.
Oh, it's much more fun, and you can make those physically, meaning on-site, like a normal board games, and then people get really engaged and they talk like
Wow.
really fast. But we can also go digital. The challenge going digital with games is digital illiteracy is actually a problem. People think they know are more digital than they think. The other thing is that there's normally only one person talking at the time. In a
Correct.
physical game, everybody can talk at once. That doesn't work digitally. But in a digital game, we could play games with people in Brazil and China and
Yeah.
in the Arab states and Africa at the same time, just accepting the difference of time zones. And now you got this cultural aspect into the game as well, which is way more fun, which digital games open up for, as you said, with the more other ways of doing it.
Mhm. And sometimes, as you know, that intellectual property is not considered as an easier subject for everybody to understand. So these games can come to our rescue for that.
Yeah, hopefully, because the fun part is that it's not just all about the legal stuff. It's about how the legal stuff, to say it a bit blunt, is applied in reality. And sometimes you need to make compromises. And in a game or a simulation, when you mix teams with lawyers, technology people, social scientists, and patent people, or branding people, you learn from each other. You figure out that we can't optimize things from a legal perspective. We need to also look at how can we actually make the money, and sometimes you need to take a risk. And that's kind of the good thing of doing it this way, and it's much more engaging and fun. So we've actually played games with this is cool. And people get so engaged that we have to, okay, time out people. People get headaches because they get so engaged. And normally when you do IP lessons, people, they get narcoleptic and just fall asleep because it's too heavy. But we could do the same kind of heavy in a simulation where people get like really engaged like this. And it's fun, and that's so much better.
Correct, correct. And coming to my next question, it would be like business today, like these days, especially because we live in a digital world and most of the businesses are digital. And it has a lot of intangible assets associated with it. Like all kinds of business have, the number of intangible assets have increased. So, do you think that these serious games can help the organization manage these assets? Or if you can give us some examples how it can actually be done, so we'll be very happy to
Oh
know.
yeah. So first we could use games to after they had some minimum reading, what is a patent, what is a trademark, and so on. You need to know what the tools are. We could play a game, and you could see how does this apply in your context. Well, that's interesting, and you learn from each other experiences, and it's more relevant, which is essential. The next step would be we could use a game where it's more kind of a gameplay self-assessment. So you could use the principles of serious games and simulation to assess your inventory of trade secrets or know-how, which is crucial for your business, and map those out. And now you made an inventory by the use of this game, and you could use this game in order to structuring and prioritizing and understanding the strategical value of trade secrets uh, through a game, which is quite interesting. And then, of course, you need to put it into a knowledge management system of some sort. But it's interesting. It's a engaging way of getting there. It's just like sitting in there, filling in the form.
Correct. So from all older ways of managing IP, it's like gamification of managing IP, and we are
Yeah,
just on the road of that.
yeah. So it's much more engaging,
Correct.
and you don't have to say that IP is boring. So why not have fun while doing it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Magnus, now we'll come to your life and we'll have a quick rapid fire round about you. So, answer these questions very quickly. What are three things in life you're grateful for?
I got 3 kids, I got a wife, and I got a good health.
Wow. Two traits that you think are useful for a professional career.
Well, one thing is that remember that you got 2 ears, 2 eyes, and only one mouth, meaning listen 80% of the time. The
Yeah.
other part, be a bit humble because everybody got some insights to give you. So get off your horse and listen to others because everybody's got something to offer.
And one aspiration you have for the future.
It would be get more people to have fun with intellectual property.
Wow, get more people to have fun with intellectual property. Magnus, I'll be very, very happy to know, like, how did you come up with this idea? From
Well,
where did you get to know that one day you will gamify this IP domain and you will help people understand them in an engaging way?
we were doing training at a quite large international firm, a Fortune 500 company, a huge one, about 120,000 people, and they were training people to be innovation champions, to lead their own innovation projects. And then they needed to learn innovation management and intellectual property management, and those are normally engineers. So how can you make them understand what is all of this, and at the same time understand they knew a lot more than they thought they knew, and to make it engaging and prepare them for what to do, we figured out, let's make a simulation, and we started building on top of this. And obviously, this wasn't my idea alone, but it was part of the firm we were working with.
Wow, wow. I think sometimes we get ideas from the problems we face, and those are the ideas that work.
Oh, totally. And this is from listening to the clients, is they have a need, and jointly we solve it. And
Yeah,
I learned something.
absolutely. And for entrepreneurs, it is a learning curve. From every anything we can learn anything and we can implement anything.
Totally.
Yeah. So, Magnus, any final thoughts before we conclude this podcast?
Well, always employ people who are smarter than yourself, then you'll
Yes.
have a success.
Yes, 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 absolutely. Always employ people smarter than yourself. This was Magnus with us. Thank you so much, Magnus, for your time and for your willingness to share.
Thank you for having me on.
Hey there, thank you for attending today's session. If you enjoyed today's session, do follow our channel and consider sharing it with a friend. My name is Priggya Arora, daughter of inspiring parents, alumna of IIT Kharagpur, engineer turned lawyer and entrepreneur, and now founder of PA Legal, where we help creators and innovators protect their intellectual property. Thank you.